Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Jared.
And this is the Italian American Stories Podcast. Today's episode is a special one, not just because of the incredible story that we're sharing, but because I get to share it with my husband, Jared, who is a proud U.S. Marine veteran.
Thanks, Boo Boo.
Yeah, it's been about a year since you've joined us on the podcast.
Yeah, I think last Veterans Day I did one with you, so...
Like I said, I'm truly honored to have Jared here as we pay tribute to another Marine whose courage, humility, and sacrifice continue to inspire generations.
Yeah, this will be great because, obviously we have Veterans Day coming up November the 11th, but also a big thing is the gentleman that you're doing the story on today was a U.S. Marine. Mm-hmm. And we have the Marine Corps birthday coming up. Big one, 250th anniversary. So if those of you that don't know, the Marines were born in a bar, Tun Tavern in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, November 10th, 1775. So let's hit that Marine Corps hymn, Boo Boo.
Here we go. All right, so that's just a little snippet of what we're going to be talking about today, because today we're telling the story of Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone. He is an American hero whose bravery during World War II made him one of the most legendary Marines in history. He was a man whose courage became legendary and whose story still inspires both Italian Americans and Marines around the world.
Yeah, this is a freaking awesome story, and
I'm going to try to get through this without tears, but here we go.
You can do it.
I can do it. And if not, I'll just make Jared read part of it. All right. So John Basilone, he was born on November 4th, 1916 in Buffalo, New York. He was the sixth of 10 children of Salvatore and Dora Basilone. They were immigrants from Italy. The family later settled in Raritan, New Jersey, where family, hard work, faith, it really shaped their lives. And John's father, Salvatore, he actually worked as a tailor in nearby Somerville, just basically running a small one-man shop to support that large family.
Yeah, that's awesome. Pretty cool that he was a tailor. He was getting everybody's threads all nice.
All nice.
Yeah, you can imagine everybody was pretty much wearing suits back then. Or they're at least wearing slacks, and people still cared about like the way they looked.
Exactly, yeah. Not running around in sweatpants and
not wearing like a fishnet t-shirt or something like that,
Gross.
Need you to take in the old fishnet a few inches.
Salvatore would be like, get out of here. But so like we talked about, John, he grew up in Raritan, New Jersey, and at 15 he actually left school to kind of help out at home, bring in a little bit more money for the family. He worked as a golf caddy and then just kind of little odd jobs, but like many young men, he longed for adventure, and at 17 he found it.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, I went in the Marines when I was 17. My dad signed a waiver for me, so I can kind of find some similarity there for sure.
Yeah.
Probably got tired of being in the town that he was in, and he was ready to kind of strike it out on his own.
Exactly. So. See what the world had, I mean, you think about like his father and his mother. Their adventure was coming from Italy to America, and...
Yeah, and you were saying that they had a family of 10 kids.
10 kids.
So that house is probably crazy.
It's
probably like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. He goes from a packed house to a...
packed barracks room with a bunch of Marines. That probably was just like at home for him. So.
Probably, yep. Yeah, so in 1934, like we said, he was 17. He actually enlisted first in the U.S. Army, and he served in the Philippines with the 16th and 31st Infantry. And this is where he earned the nickname Manila John. During this time, he was really known for his boxing skills in the Philippines, and he actually became a local favorite in the area. People would come and watch him, bet on him, and so yeah, I thought that was kind of cool, that nickname, Manila John.
Yeah, I could imagine being in the military at that time, and they were probably putting their own like local boxing clubs together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just fighting other guys
within
their squad or maybe the next squad. So
exactly. And Jared and I were talking a little bit before we started recording, when he was in the U.S. Army and in the Philippines, at this point in time, he hadn't really seen combat. They were just occupying the Philippines. So,
Yeah.
but later on, when he joins the Marines, the Manila John nickname kind of stuck with him because back then, John was a very popular name. Everybody was named John. So it was a way to distinguish him from all the other Johns.
Yeah.
But after leaving the Army in 1939, he returned home. He kind of tried to settle back into life. He was a truck driver for a while, but civilian life just didn't quite feel right for him. So in July of 1940, he enlisted again, but this time he enlisted with the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, this time frame here, because, 1934, there was no war going on. Mm-hmm. But then in 1939 into 1940 is when World War II was just starting to get kicked off.
Yeah.
So he got out during a time where there wasn't a war going on with the Army, but then he re-enlisted right in 1940 when World War II was kicking off again.
Exactly. So, he enlisted in July 1940, and he did his recruit training at Parris Island, and then advanced training at Quantico, and later he served at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba before shipping out to the Pacific. So when the Marines landed on Guadalcanal in 1942, John served with the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division. And this battle was fierce. They dealt with relentless jungle heat, exhaustion, and of course waves of enemy fire. And on the night of October 24th into the 25th, more than 3,000 Japanese soldiers launched a massive assault near Henderson Field. And Basilone, he commanded 2 sections of heavy machine guns. And when one crew fell, he actually ended up taking over their weapon as well. And then when another jammed, he crawled through gunfire to repair it. So he was repairing these machine guns that were jammed with his bare hands.
Yeah, and probably a little bit more reference so people can understand the weapons. So he commanded 2 sections of the M19 17A1 Browning 30 caliber water-cooled machine guns. These were the big ones. They weighed 103 pounds. Jeez. They had a rate of fire of 450 to 600 rounds per minute. So he was running back and forth between the machine guns, giving them its belt-fed ammo. So long belts of heavy ammo. But then he was also repairing them. Like he would get jams, sometimes, they're water cooled for a reason. They're sending out so many rounds. That barrel's getting freaking hot.
Oh, that makes sense.
So, and of course, Browning was one of the top gun manufacturers for the U.S. military and they made a lot of different weapons for the U.S. military. So,
well, and as ammunition ran out and the enemy soldiers were coming closer, Basilone, he reportedly used his pistol and a machete to hold the line because remember those big machine guns, they're jamming. And so he would use, like I said, his pistol and his machete, refusing to give ground until reinforcements finally arrived.
Doing whatever it takes.
Yeah, and they did this for 3 days and nights. They held this ground without food and barely any little rest. So, no, the sad part is only 2 Marines in his section survived.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I mean, Guadalcanal was a historic battle during World War II. Brutal jungle warfare, that's the way it goes during war.
So Basilone's courage was matched only by his leadership. The Marines under him, they proudly called themselves Basilone's boys. They said he never asked his men to do anything that he wouldn't do himself, and that's what made them follow him without hesitation. You
create different characters in the Marines. You create nicknames for each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had a camaraderie there, and Basilone's boys. That's pretty cool.
A lot of wartime reports told, of the carnage, basically piles of enemy bodies before his gun. An eyewitness, Private First Class Nash Phillips, he remembered Basilone and he said, quote, Basilone had a machine gun on the go for 3 days and nights. He was causing the Japanese a lot of trouble, not only firing his first machine gun, but also using his pistol.
Yeah.
3 days. The exhaustion. I can't even imagine.
3 days of hell.
Yeah, exactly. So newspapers across the country held him as the Marine who fought for 3 days and nights without rest or food, and his courage basically turned the tide of the Battle of Guadalcanal. Official Marine Corps and Arlington Cemetery records confirm that he actually killed at least 38 enemy soldiers during the 3-day siege at Guadalcanal. But for his extraordinary valor, Basilone received the Medal of Honor, becoming one of the first enlisted Marines of World War II to earn it.
That's pretty awesome, man. One of the first enlisted Marines to receive the Medal of Honor during World War II. Do you mind if I read his citation?
Yeah, no, go for it.
So his citation read in part, At great risk of his life, he battled his way through hostile lines with urgently needed shells. His personal valor and courageous initiative were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service.
He earned it for sure. So after Guadalcanal, he returned home, and he was, of course, greeted as a hero. The town of Raritan threw him a parade, and the Marine Corps sent him across the country on a war bond tour.
They did that back then. They don't do that anymore.
No.
So
yeah, the bonds are not really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And wherever he went, crowds lined the streets to see him. Because, like we talked about earlier, he was in the newspapers across the country. And so when he would go to different towns, people wanted to see him. But John, he wasn't really comfortable in the spotlight. It wasn't really his vibe. A Los Angeles Times article summed it up. He was just a plain soldier who belonged with his unit. That's where his heart was.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. The society and the way the country welcomed those who fought in war with open arms. They didn't greet them with hostility like we've seen in other wartime periods. So that's great, but it's just like anything else. I mean, he didn't go into the military to be a movie star.
Exactly.
So I bet that was a little odd for him to be put in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And then also you got to think about this. He went through a pretty crazy scenario. I mean, they said that he killed 38 individuals. You come back from doing that to coming and having the spotlight in your face. That'd be hard for anybody.
Yeah, how do you adjust that? Those are two totally different worlds.
Yeah. But they were doing it for war bonds.
Yes.
So
he probably still had that sense of, I'm still serving my country.
Yeah.
I'm still doing something.
But yeah, I could see he's just like, you know what, man, just get me back to my unit.
Exactly.
Just get me back to my unit.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because, in fact, he actually turned down a commission and teaching posts and asked to go back to combat. So kind of during that transition time, where he was doing the war bonds, but getting ready to ship back out to combat, he met Sergeant Lena Riggi. She was a field cook in the Women Marines Reserve. So another Marine.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cute. And Lena, she was born on March 7th, 1913 in Portland, Oregon, to Italian immigrant parents. And she grew up on a family farm in Salem, Oregon. And so Lena, after high school, she attended business school, but she wasn't really feeling it. And she left business school to enlist when she heard the call to serve. So through determination, she rose to the rank of sergeant, serving at Camp Pendleton during war.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. There's some stories that never change with the human condition, especially when you're around that age and you're out of high school and you're trying to determine what you're going to do with your life. And sometimes the environment shapes who you are. I mean, World War II. This was a different time in America. And so maybe she had started business school, and then with World War II going on, I mean, that's pretty hard to concentrate.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, man, I'm going to business school, but what could I really be doing for my country?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool that, especially that she made that decision since she was already in business school to step away from it and start serving. So
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you though. I've actually talked about that on the podcast a few times. The human problems, they don't really change. I've done stories on this podcast from the 1800s, and people are trying to start a life, fall in love, work through a marriage, work through a business. It's like the human problems stay the same. Our environment's just changed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing, trying to find purpose. Mm-hmm. That's probably like the number one thing.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a real purpose in your life, then you're always going to be lost.
Yes, exactly.
So she found a purpose and
went with it. So she was working at Camp Pendleton, and Basilone, he was there. And so, he was pretty famous at this time. Everybody kind of knew him. The other women who were at Camp Pendleton, they were kind of starstruck by the famous war hero, but not Lena. John later recalled, I nodded, and she might have nodded or not, but she wasn't falling all over herself to get to know me. I liked this girl. She was tough.
That's pretty cool.
So it's almost like she didn't pay him any attention, and he was like, how come this girl's not paying me any attention?
Yeah, she wasn't like swooning over him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So after this, though, within weeks, the two fell in love and decided to marry. They married on July 10th, 1944. They wed at St. Mary's Star of the Sea Church in Oceanside, California. And afterward, they said goodbye in the same Camp Pendleton chow hall where they'd first met, because John was headed back to war.
Yeah, it's cool reading this. I mean, I did my basic training out at MCRD Camp Pendleton, and then I did my School of Infantry training out there too. But like when we got a little bit of leave, we were able to go out to Oceanside. And,
nice.
Like some of us started calling it Ocean Slime, but I know the area. Yeah, I mean, I can picture it pretty well in my head.
Oh, I bet.
The setting, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so John was headed back to war. He was quoted saying, "We talked of our life after the war, what we'd named the first boy and the first girl. She didn't cry. She pretended she was okay. I told her, I'm coming back, and she believed me."
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, you know, when you're set into a situation like that, you have to have your mindset on that you're coming back. That's it. Because no matter what happens, you have to at least have that mindset.
Yeah.
So
it's like having hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So just a month later, John shipped out for Iwo Jima, and Lena stayed behind, continuing her service and work with the Women Marines Reserve. But she always held tight to his promise. I'm going to try not to cry here. Every time we do the veterans one, I'm like, oh, don't cry. Okay. But fate would soon call John back into the heart of battle. And on February 19th, 1945, which was the first day of the Battle of Iwo Jima, Basilone, he led his men of C Company, 1st Battalion, 27th Marines ashore under devastating fire. Almost immediately, his unit was pinned down by enemy blockhouses and machine gun nests. I have a quick question. What is a blockhouse?
Blockhouse is basically kind of like maybe like a concrete structure where they could house, basically in this case it'd be Japanese soldiers. Okay. But a lot of times they would also have little ports where they could put machine guns and defend their position from.
Okay.
So yeah, and Iwo Jima, oh my God, Iwo Jima was one of the most brutal landings. The Japanese were pretty fortified there.
I mean, it's one of the, I don't want to say famous, but one of the most well-known battles of World War II.
Well, you know, the famous raising of the flag at Mount Suribachi?
Yeah.
That was on Iwo Jima.
That's the Marines too, huh? Raising that flag.
There was Marines, and there was actually one of the guys raising the flags was a Navy corpsman too.
Oh, okay. All right. So John, he spotted an enemy blockhouse, and alone, he charged it, destroying it with grenades and demolitions. But moments later, a Marine tank became trapped in a minefield, and he exposed himself again to heavy fire because he wanted to guide it to safety. And as he moved forward to direct his men toward airfield number 1, so basically he's kind of directing this tank, he was struck and killed. The tank that he was guiding, it went through a minefield, and he was struck by the shrapnel and killed. He was only 28 years old.
So basically this tank hit a landmine. He was trying to help guide it out, and the shrapnel from the landmine got him.
First day of the Battle of Iwo Jima. Just married. Ugh. But for his heroism, he was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross and Purple Heart, becoming the only enlisted Marine of World War II to receive both the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross.
And he got a Purple Heart, it said.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Those who trained under him and were with him during this time, they said that he always reminded his Marines, we fight together and we fall together.
Yep, we fight together, we fall together, no Marine left behind.
Yeah.
And that's what he was trying to do. I mean, there's a tank trap down there.
Yeah.
That tank could be a huge weapon for them going forward. If they lose the tank, that could cause a lot of problems for him. He's thinking strategically too. He's like, we don't want to lose our tank. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So he's doing his best to try to help that tank out. And then, of course, freaking landmine, you know, they're buried underground. You don't know where they're at.
Yeah,
so
how do you know? So for Lena, she was obviously devastated when she heard about John's death. But for her, love only happened once. And that's how she described the bond that she shared with John. When John was killed, she was just 32 years old, and she actually never remarried. She kept the wedding ring on that he gave her for the rest of her life.
Pretty strong bond that they built together.
Absolutely.
So
she would go on to basically the rest of her life to honor John and veterans. In 1945, she actually served as the official sponsor of the destroyer USS Basilone. She later presented John's Medal of Honor to his parents in Raritan, honoring both his heroism and their sacrifice. But after the war, Lena, she continued to live in California, where she spent more than 5 decades volunteering with veterans groups. You know, she supported the Marine Corps community in that area. She was active in the Women's Marines Association, and really, she truly remained a fixture at events honoring John and his fellow Marines. And so, she was offered to be buried when she passed away next to John at Arlington, but she actually declined. She said that, she wanted to be buried at the Riverside National Cemetery in California, just basically saying simply, I don't want to cause trouble for anyone. But to the very end, she represented the Marine Corps with pride. When she passed away on June 11th, 1999, she was still wearing her wedding ring, and she was buried in her Marine Corps uniform. So we talked about earlier how they were married at St. Mary's Star of the Sea Church in Oceanside. There's actually a plaque there that honors John and Lena and, their enduring love. And so that's kind of cool. It'd be neat to see that plaque.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. So for John, he was killed that first day of the Battle of Iwo Jima. So his body, he was actually buried in Iwo Jima in 1945. And he would later be reinterred at Arlington National Cemetery in 1948. So the military came forward and offered families, we'll bring their bodies back if you want. And John's family said, yes, we want him to come back home.
So I'm sure a lot of families would want their kids or whoever it was back, bring them home,
Yeah. So that
Don't
way
leave them over there.
You can go visit their grave and honor them. And so his grave is located at the Arlington National Cemetery in Section 12. It's grave 384. It's a simple white headstone. That's like what it is in Arlington. And it's inscribed with his name, rank, and honors. And his Medal of Honor and Navy Cross are preserved and displayed at the National Museum of the Marine Corps. Hey, we've been there.
We have.
Over the years, John Basilone's name has become part of the Marine Corps legend. At Camp Pendleton, there is a Basilone Road and a memorial highway that bear his name. But in his hometown of Raritan, he's very well known and very honored. So there's a statue of him holding a machine gun, and the Basilone Memorial Field is home to the annual John Basilone Memorial Parade. And the parade has actually been going since 1981. And it draws veterans and their families from all over the country. And it's actually the only parade in the country that is dedicated to a single Marine.
That's freaking
single
awesome.
Military member, yeah. And they have an annual 5K that they do. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but in 1949, the destroyer USS Basilone was commissioned in his honor. And in 2005, the U.S. Postal Service actually issued a Distinguished Marines stamp bearing his likeness. And in recognition of his lasting impact, John Basilone was actually inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame in 2011. And this, just ensures his legacy endures among New Jersey's greatest citizens. The Hall of Fame described him as a Marine Corps legend and one of New Jersey's most decorated heroes of World War II. And, he actually was depicted in the HBO series The Pacific, and I think that came out in 2010. But for Italian Americans, John Basilone's story, it reminds us of what our families gave to this country. His parents came from Italy seeking opportunity, and their son gave his life to protect it. For Marines and veterans like Jared and so many listening, he represents the best of the Marine Corps: honor, courage, commitment, and brotherhood. He didn't fight for fame or glory. He fought for his fellow Marines, his family, and the country that gave his parents a new beginning. But if you ever find yourself in Raritan, New Jersey, definitely stop by the statue of John Basilone.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when you go through Marine Corps boot camp, you have to complete Marine Corps history. And, it's stories like this gentleman's that help shape the standards and the qualities that are imbued in the Marines. These are the stories that young Marines need to hear. So, amazing man during a historic time, World War II, man. Brutal. The greatest generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they earned that for sure.
And he fought in two of some of the most brutal and historic battles during World War II, Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima. So I do want to give a shout out to John's family because they are still honoring him today. There is a Instagram page called the Basilone Foundation. And so you can just Google that and it comes up. I think it's his niece and his great nieces that are actually doing this. And they have a podcast. It is called Johnny's Girls Podcast. And they just started, but they're on YouTube, they're on Spotify. So definitely give them a listen, give them a follow. They're doing a great job keeping his legacy alive. Their Instagram page is full of amazing photos of John and, amazing veterans and people running the 5Ks that honor John. So it's really cool. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, you have a family member like that. You got to be proud of it and keep on telling the stories.
Exactly.
Pass it down.
And if you enjoyed today's story, please follow us as well. Share and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. If you'd like to support what we do, visit our website or social media pages to learn how you can help us keep bringing these stories to life. And I hope you enjoyed the story of John. And thank you, Jared, for joining me. And thank you for your service, my love.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's always fun to do these, especially these Veteran Days podcasts with you. And of course, we have to exit in style. So we'll use the Marine Corps hymn as the ending.
Absolutely. Yep. And happy Veterans Day, everybody. And we hope you come back and listen to more stories about Italian Americans. See you later.
See you later.